Hey everybody, Lawyer Autumn Whitboyd here. I am back with our latest installment in our series on different kinds of businesses and what you might need to know. So if you run an online community or a membership, any kind of subscription-based model where you have people coming in, you're providing them content on an ongoing basis, or you're providing them a platform to meet other people, to make connections. If that is your business model, you are in the right place today. That is what we are going to be talking about. And I love working with clients who have membership communities, and they present some really unique and different issues than maybe an online course business would or a digital download business would. So we're going to dive into all of that today. Before I forget, I'm going to give you my standard disclaimer, which is I am a lawyer. I'm licensed to practice in Tennessee. If you are listening or watching this, please take this not as legal advice. This is information. So please do not rely on this. It's meant to get your wheels turning, alert you of some things that you might need to think about, but it is not intended to replace actually talking with a lawyer and getting good advice for your individual business. The show notes for this episode and every episode are on our website at awbfirm.com/podcast. This is episode 155, so you can go to awbfirm.com/podcast 155. We do have a free resource for this episode. It's going to be our guide to help you write your own contract. As you will hear in just a minute, contracts really for every business, but definitely for an online membership or community type business, you need a good contract with your students or clients, whatever you call them, your customers, whoever is paying you money to be in your membership or your community. You need to have a good contract with them. And so this guide is going to help you write that on your own. If you feel like you would like a little more support, a little more help, we do have templates available on our website as well. I'll talk more about what might be appropriate for this kind of business in a few minutes. But let's dig in. So with an online community or membership business, your key legal protection is really going to be your contract with your students, your customers, your clients. And this is what I like to call your terms of use. Different people call it different things. For simplicity's sake, I like to call that thing that's on your website in the footer, your terms and conditions. And I like to call your contract with your students, your clients, your customers, your terms of use. This is how you are agreeing you're going to work together and what they're going to get from you. All of those kinds of terms should be in your terms of use. So when we think about an online community, I always like to start with kind of the negative. You guys know I'm a generally positive, upbeat person, but we do see behind the scenes of a lot of these businesses, a lot of large online communities and memberships, we see what goes wrong. So I want to share that with you. Of course, we never give away confidential information, but we've been dealing with some tricky issues with a couple of our clients lately. So I want to share, these are some things that might happen to you as you're building your business if you're wanting to run a community or a membership. So the first things that can go wrong are just they could happen anytime you have a customer or a client, and that is people not paying. So typically what we see with an online community or a membership is that it's a recurring payment. So it might be a monthly subscription. It might be every 6 months. It might be, you may have an option that they just pay once a year. But the idea is it's an ongoing payment. It's not a pay once and you get access forever. You might have that. But what I typically see is it's more of a recurring payment type situation. So I was actually just talking with a new client yesterday about this. She's had issues with people who are in her online community who are surprised when they receive, a notice that their credit card has been charged for the next recurring payment. And so we kind of looked at her sales page and we looked at the checkout page and we tried to see, is it clear on the front end that you are signing up for a recurring payment, that this is not a one-time payment? Because honestly, some of the issues that turn out to be legal issues down the road really start as kind of business choices or marketing choices, but they can have impacts later. So when we looked at all of those parts and pieces of her sales funnel, how someone goes from first hearing about her to actually learning about her community and making a purchase, we thought it was pretty darn clear that it was a recurring payment, that this was not a one-time payment. She made it pretty clear, and there was even an annual and a monthly option. So, but think about that as you are setting up all of the different parts and pieces of your funnel to get people to purchase into your membership or your community. Making it clear that this is a recurring payment and however that's going to work, telling people on the front end, maybe telling them in multiple places and multiple times so that they're really clear, this is what you're signing up for. is a good idea. Now that those kind of terms should also be in the terms of use. And when I'm talking about the terms of use, I should have said this earlier, typically what I like to recommend, what I like to see is that you have your terms of use linked or in a scroll box on the checkout page. So the purchaser has an opportunity to read them, to take a look, to see if they agree with them before they ever hit purchase, before they ever give you their credit card or their money. It's not required. Some people, especially for higher end memberships, will sell over the phone. But you want to get their agreement to those terms of use. They have to be able to see them to agree to them. So even if if some of our clients have that agreement to the terms of use at a later time after payment has processed, that can be okay. It can get tricky because if, let's say, someone reads the terms of use and they don't like them, you might have to give them a refund. So that's why I like to see it before purchase, but it can work later on in the process as well. But you have to give them the opportunity to read the terms of use, whether that's linking to a page on your site where they live, sending them a copy by email. That can be kind of burdensome. So I like to just have it either linked at checkout or in a scroll box. Either way, so they have the opportunity to read and digest them before they take some affirmative action, whether that's a clicking in, I agree, a little checkbox, or maybe you have language under the buy now button that says, by clicking buy now, you agree to these terms. They have to take some action. You can't just have them hidden away. They never even saw them. But you say, oh, well, by being in the membership, you agreed to these terms. That's not going to work if you want to actually enforce those terms later. And just like if you've listened to other episodes for other types of online business owners, you've heard this before. I say it on repeat. Contracts really should protect both sides. They should be even-handed if you want them to work well, and they should set expectations. So there should not be any surprises when someone goes to look at a contract. It should be consistent with what you've been saying all along. What's on your sales page, what was, if you have a refund policy page, if you have language at checkout, all of those same things should be consistent. It should all be the same so that if someone does pull up those terms of use later and says, well, what did I agree to? There should not be anything different than what they already knew they were signing up for. But by requiring that affirmative action, that's how you are going to have a good record if an issue comes up later. And you do need to take some action, maybe ask someone to stop doing something, tell them they're doing something wrong, maybe kick them out of the community or the membership. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you want to have some sort of record that, yes, they did take some affirmative action, they agreed to them, and so now they're on the hook. Now they have, agreed to be bound by everything that's in your terms of use. So failure to pay and recurring payment issues are certainly a big issue. If you maybe have a payment plan, kind of similar to a recurring payment, sometimes people fail to pay. Maybe you give them access to all your content on the front end, so you really want them to make all those payments. Maybe you just let them be month to month. Whether or not you have a required minimum number of months or a year, that's really up to you. That's a business decision. But making sure that your terms of use have really clear payment terms. What day of the month is their card going to be auto-charged? Or do you allow them to pay by draft? Will you send them an invoice if they would prefer that? Do you take PayPal, or is it set up through something different? All of these different parts and pieces, you need to make sure you know kind of how the tech works on your side so that you can tell people what to expect. Something else that comes up with payments is, can the person, the community member or customer, cancel their membership, or do they have to ask you to cancel it? Do you have kind of a self-service portal where they can make changes? Let's say, which just happened to me. I have a client and friend, Corinne Crabtree, who runs the Fit and Fat PNP Tribe. No BS Women is their new name, the online membership. And I was trying to log in. I'm a member. I've been a member for years. I was trying to log in to see something. She has an excellent new series about parenting during pandemic, and it wouldn't give me access. And it told me there was a problem with my subscription. So I went over to that tab. It turned out I had an old credit card that had been stolen. So I'd gotten a new number, but I'd never updated it. And I guess the credit card company had kept honoring it under the new number. It had finally conked out, so I had to go update my credit card, but it was very easy for me to do that. I took care of it. It was not a problem. So if you do have that tech, again, you want to put that in your terms of use. You want to tell people you can update your own subscription information at any time, or here's how you cancel. Do they have to send an email? Whatever that looks like for your membership, you just want to tell people. I do have clients that their payment processor, it takes a couple days to like stop a recurring payment. So they require a few days notice before the next payment is going to hit if you want to cancel, or it's just going to be charged. Building on payment issues is refunds. So with memberships, a lot of them are lower priced, and so they may have a no refund policy. You're paying month to month, you get access to whatever, but I'm not going to refund you if you decide you want to leave. Again, whatever your policy is, you want to make that very clear, and you want to have it in your terms of use and that they've agreed to it. So if a question comes up later, you can kind of point to that and say, this is our refund policy. And yes, we will give you a refund, or no, we won't. I'll mention this has come up with a couple of clients lately. We've been drafting a ton of terms of use for clients. And this question always comes up about, well, what if their mom died, or they were in a car accident, or they lost their job? What if I want to give them a refund? Can I put, oh, refunds are in our discretion, or, some kind of very loose language that just basically says like, well, think about it. You can ask for a refund and we might give one. You can probably tell from my tone of voice that I'm not a huge fan of that type of language in your contract. But here is the secret I will tell you, if you don't already know this, is that you as the business owner can always be nicer than the contract terms say. You can always give a refund even when you're not required to. You can always, gift somebody a free month if they're having a hard time. I would not put that in your terms of use though, because I think it opens people up to asking and taking advantage when really they don't have a good reason to. You are going to get a deluge of these kinds of requests, and they're all going to be pitiful. They're all going to make your heartstrings, tug. And so I just think not having that language will shut down a lot of the, inappropriate requests for refunds, or, baseless requests for forbearance, all of those kinds of things. You will still get some because people will still ask, even if you have a no refund policy. So don't worry. If you have somebody with a real sob story, they will probably still reach out. But that gives you the ability to say yes or no with a little more kind of guts behind it. You can just blame the contract, blame your mean lawyer. I always say I'm willing to be the bad guy and take the blame so that you don't have to with your clients and customers. But either way, whether you offer refunds or not, that needs to be in your terms of use. All right, so we've been talking about kind of the business issues with running a membership, but let's talk about where things can really go off the rails, which is if you have a community where, let's say it's a Facebook group, it could be a Slack group, it could be, Mighty Networks has a great platform. There's all kinds of platforms. You could have a community forum or something on your own website. There's lots of different ways these things are run. But often online memberships and communities have some sort of, messaging ability, or bulletin boards where people can interact and post questions and get to know each other. But that leads, because people are people, it can get very messy. So here are a couple of things I want you to think about that we see going wrong kind of on the regular. And I recommend that you include that you have two places where you address this. First, it should be in your terms of use. That is a contract. They are agreeing that by paying you and getting access to your community, they're going to follow your rules. So I think they should be in your terms of use. But you may change them over time. Some new thing could come up that none of us could ever have dreamed about. Racism has been a problem for a long time, but I'm recording this in August of 2020. I don't think any of us would have imagined the anti-racism swell, the Black Lives Matter movement that has just really escalated in a good way and brought a lot of attention to a lot of problems. I don't think any of us could have predicted that we would have been having these conversations in the way we are now. I think it's all positive, is my personal opinion, but no one probably had terms about that in their terms of use or in their rules. And that has been a real issue in online communities. People are kind of grappling with this. Not everybody's on good behavior. Not everyone agrees. And so we've seen a lot of friction around that issue in online communities. So that's something, again, that may not have been in someone's terms of use 6 months ago. They may be adding it now. But you need to have some ability to adapt to things that come up kind of on the fly. And so you might include some language in your terms of use that just say, we'll also post either community guidelines or standards or rules, whatever, and that those are subject to change, and that you will be notified if they change. By continuing to be in this membership, you are agreeing that you'll kind of keep up with them and you have to abide by them. So having rules both in your terms of use and in your Facebook group, ideally, or whatever platform you're using, Ideally, they should be the same, but understand that things change and you need to be flexible. So the rules that are posted in the actual community may be a little different, may morph and change over time a little bit. This is also a reminder. I know lots of us, and I'm guilty of this as well on our law firm side. I do not review our contracts probably as often as I should. But set a reminder once a year to take a look at your contract, take a look at your terms of use, because you may have updated things and just forgotten about it. We change how we're doing business all the time. And so gentle reminder, if you're listening, go review your contract. If it's been more than a year, there's probably some things that you should update if you haven't looked at it in a while. But okay, so here's some things you might want to think about as you're formulating those rules, thinking about what needs to go in your terms of use. And we'll talk about kind of some consequences in a minute as well. So I see people spamming other members, trying to sell them stuff, sending them DMs that are not invited. Spamming other members can be a problem, especially, I'm in a lot of business groups. It can get very out of control if you don't have rules around it and you're not enforcing them. Other people selling in the group. So kind of similar to spamming, but more just, trying to openly sell in the group. So maybe not, contacting people one-on-one, but maybe posting all the time in the group about their thing or trying to get people to enroll. Especially if this is, a private coaching group or a course, maybe you're fine with people selling their stuff to each other. Maybe you're like, wait until you're asked. Everybody here knows what you do. If they're interested, they'll ask you. Again, there's no rules on this. You can set whatever rules you want. If you want it to be more of a marketplace type group, let people have at it. What I have found is that can get kind of messy. So you may want to have at least some guardrails around that. A big one, and this is what I'm seeing a lot of recently, is kind of unkind comments, hurtful behavior, bullying, racist comments, or, anti-racist reactions, and everyone shaming each other, and it can just get really ugly. So if you are seeing that happen in your group, or if you, maybe your group is around a sensitive topic, and so this may bring up some stuff that is going to have a lot of people will have feelings around. If you deal with relationships, or if you deal with sexuality, or, their parenting, all kinds of things, any kind of topic really can get controversial. Especially right now. Everybody's emotions are a little high and our nerves are all a little frazzled in the pandemic. So I do think it is helpful to have kind of a catch-all term that just basically says, we don't tolerate hurtful comments. We don't tolerate bullying, and that you kind of leave it open, because a lot of it is, it's like that Supreme Court case. I don't know I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. It's hard to define it, but you know it when you see it. You know it when something's gotten out of control. So having a rule, some kind of catch-all around that, I think is helpful. Another thing that comes up is people ripping people off. So, agreeing to provide services and then not following through, or providing them a product that doesn't work, that kind of thing. You can't 100% prevent that, but you can encourage your members to be careful when they are hiring each other or buying from each other, basically saying, I'm not endorsing anybody in here unless you are explicitly endorsing. And that we're all grown-ups here. We should all be careful. We should all, check out who you're hiring or who you're buying from. That is their responsibility, not yours. So having some kind of guardrails around that. And then the last thing I want to mention is sometimes people aren't happy with your membership or with your community, and they maybe think that your business is not doing what it should be, or you're not providing the level of support they expected, or they don't think your content is good. People can become disgruntled customers. And that's a customer support issue. That's something that you and your team should be handling. You should have a clear way that people can contact you. We'll talk in a minute about how important customer service is in a community or membership model type business. But the flip side of that is that can very quickly kind of poison the well of your community if somebody's complaining and now everyone's like, oh yeah, me too. I thought that webinar was garbage, or I didn't think that guide was helpful, or I'm not, they're not responding quickly enough to me either. And it can kind of turn into this circle of, bickering and, people bringing you down. It can really bring down the level of the community. It can negatively impact other members who maybe thought it was great. Maybe they're having great results. So you may want to have some terms in there about, if you have a customer service issue, please contact us. We will do our best to resolve it, but the group is not the place to kind of air those grievances. All right. So here are some ideas for guardrails you may want to put with knowing that these are issues that could come up. It is your sandbox. It is your group. It is your community. So you can put whatever rules you want, and people have the right to come or go. We're all adults here. We're all making our own decisions. No one is forcing anyone to be in your membership or your community. So you have the ability to monitor content and kick anyone out. And unless you've given them the right under your contract to have some sort of recourse, they don't really have any recourse against you. You should include terms in your contract that make that clear so there's no question later that you have discretion to terminate someone's membership or to remove them from the community if they are violating any of the rules that they agreed to follow. So here are some things you may want to include, again, in your terms of use and in your rules that are posted for people to see and may change over time. So reserving the right to delete posts, reserving the right to close comments, reserving the right to kick people out, to terminate people. I will say it will bring bad vibes to your community, especially I find this less with paid communities, but more with free communities. People are usually not just terminating people willy-nilly from a paid membership or a paid community because you don't want to lose that customer. But if you are seen as kicking people out willy-nilly and maybe, the person you kicked out has told their friends, and again, it can start to poison the well if it seems unfounded, if it seems like you're kicking people out for no good reason or that you have some agenda, it can bring down the community. So just watch that, be careful about that, be mindful about that. But hopefully you're not kicking people out willy-nilly and there's good reasons. It's kind of traumatic anytime you have to do that, so it's not a lot of fun. And Facebook has a tool. If your group is on Facebook, Facebook actually has a tool where you can let someone know which rule they broke when you kick them out. So that's an option for you in the Facebook group admin tools. So you can say, you were kicked out for XYZ. Now, if you're actually terminating a customer, you probably don't want to just kick them out of the Facebook group. You would probably want to give them some sort of notice that they're being terminated, maybe by email or letter, because you're probably terminating their access elsewhere. But if the only thing they have access to is the Facebook group, that is an option for you. All right, let's talk about your team. So when you are running a membership, you may find, and I'll give a preview of next week's episode, which is an interview with a very successful owner of a membership community for hairstylists, Britt Siva. She owns Thrivers Society, and she trains hairstylists on how to market and run their businesses better. So she talked a little bit about this, about how her team is much larger than maybe a business with similar revenue numbers would be if it was an online course business. The level of customer support required if you want to do a good job running a membership and you want to keep your members, that's the ideal. When you're running a membership or something with recurring revenue, you want to keep that revenue coming. You don't want a bunch of people signing up for a month or two and then leaving. We call that churn, if you've never heard that. You don't want a lot of churn. You want people to keep paying. You want them to be happy. You want them to stay. You want them to be engaged and getting great results from whatever you're helping them with. And so part of that is customer support. It's not like you are running a launch and people are just going through a course for 6 weeks and then they're gone. I think a lot of online course businesses, they kind of staff up with support for a launch and then running the course. And then, those are temporary workers and they go on their way. You definitely need probably more customer support as an online membership or community model. So just keep that in mind. That's going to be something that's coming if it's not already as you grow and scale. You cannot have the same number of people doing customer support when you have 1,000 members as you did when you had 20. It just will not work. I mentioned earlier that I had a problem with my credit card on the PMP website. I tried to fix it myself and it wasn't working. It was just some sort of glitch. So I had to email their support. They were awesome. Actually, Corinne's mom runs their support, Mammy. Shout out to Mammy, Anna. And she got back to me right away. She fixed it. It was not a problem. But, they have a dedicated customer support team because they do have a lot of members and, there's questions, there's issues, I can't get access to this or this won't work or just I need some help around, I need some coaching around this. How can I get that? Or, questions around the content. It's all kinds of things. When you've got a membership, people will have questions. It's a relationship. So customer service is a big part of that. When you are thinking about building that team, I want to just give you a heads up. I'm not going to do a deep dive into the difference between independent contractors and employees. We have lots of episodes on that, so go check those out. I'll drop links in the show notes if you want to listen to those, including an interview with our own Michelle Coakley, who is our firm's employment law guru. She works with a lot of our larger clients on their employment issues. But I think a lot in the online business world, a lot of us, and I was the same, start with independent contractors because we think it's easy and it's not a big deal. We can be flexible. But there are rules around using contractors in your business on an ongoing basis, especially for something like customer support. Those roles typically should be categorized, should be classified as an employee. Now there's tests and there's factors that you can balance, and if you are adding team members, I highly recommend that you at least schedule a quick consult with a lawyer to make sure you're doing things the right way, because the fines and penalties and back pay and audits, it gets very expensive very quickly. You will save yourself a ton of trouble by spending a little bit of money, and we're talking a couple hundred, maybe $1,000, to sit down with a lawyer on the front end and just kind of talk through how your team should be classified. But these customer support roles, because they're ongoing, because they're probably taking direction from you, they're probably working regular hours, you probably have regular support hours. All of those things are the kinds of things that employees do, and that contractors who should be more kind of project-based or task-oriented, they should not be doing. So think about, if you're growing a membership or a community, employees may be on the horizon, and that's not a bad thing. It can be great. I love having employees on our team here at the AWB firm. They are awesome. They are motivated. We just actually, Sarah Kate is listening to this because she works on our podcast, shifted from contractor to employee not that long ago, and now is just working with our firm primarily. And so not having to juggle other clients that your contractors may be working on, priorities are always shifting. Having their undivided attention and kind of devotion is really wonderful. And so it's a little bit more expensive, but it can be really great for your business. So I know a lot of people are kind of scared of employees. It doesn't have to be that scary or that difficult. Thinking about the other parts and pieces of running your membership business, oftentimes you're putting out new content pretty regularly, whether that's, a new guide every month or a new course every month or a new something from time to time. Usually with memberships, it's not just that they have access to one thing and it's just ongoing. Maybe it's even just that you're doing Q&A calls or coaching. That is kind of your offer. But so what I see a lot with that content creation piece is collaboration, which is awesome. So these may not be actual team members, but if you are bringing in guest experts to do Q&A, I do a lot of this. I did one earlier this week with my friend Miriam, who runs a membership for artists who are trying to sell their art as a business. I love doing guest expert Q&A type things. So if you're listening and you have a membership, call me. I would be happy to be your legal expert. So we see that a lot with memberships because you need to keep things fresh. You need to be providing information and assistance to your members. So with a guest expert, if they're just popping in, doing Q&A, maybe giving a presentation, I don't know that you need a contract for that. That's usually pretty informal. There's no money changing hands. There's really, the only agreement is I will show up and do the thing I have agreed to, and you will provide me access to your group, or you will, let me share a resource to them, or let me pitch something to them. So I don't know that needs to have a contract. Certainly some of the larger memberships do require contracts for that, and that's fine. So that's up to you. You may, though, be including guest content, and this is where it gets a little bit trickier. So if you are having other people come in and either contribute a module to a course or provide a training that's going to kind of live in your membership, I would recommend having a simple agreement. And it's not going to be a contractor agreement. What it's really is a license agreement. So it's usually if it's a guest expert, they want to hold the rights to whatever they're creating, unless you're paying them and you want to own it. But typically if it's something they've already created, maybe they use in other ways, they're going to want to hold those rights. So you want to have a contract just saying, how can you use it in your membership? What can you do with it? Are there any rules around that? Any prohibitions? Like if you wanted to make it into a standalone course, is that okay or not? You want to just be really clear on any payment terms. All of that stuff should go into a license agreement. So keep that in mind if you're collaborating with guest content that's actually going into your ongoing membership or your community. Other roles you may need are a community manager. That also typically would be an employee rather than a contractor. And then you may also have what we see a lot of our clients have are kind of volunteer community mentors or community ambassadors. Now, even if you don't pay them, what we've found is we've done a lot of research on this. Typically, they are, technically independent contractors. In many states, there's really no category for a volunteer. Someone is either an employee or a contractor if they're working for you. On an ongoing basis. We're not talking about like a 5K where someone shows up and hands out water for an hour. This is like an ongoing relationship. So again, you're going to want to go over that, make sure you're doing things the right way, because you probably are providing them some benefits, whether it's a free membership, maybe it's access to special content or a coaching call with you. You want to think through that. And I would recommend an agreement with them as well, because in a lot of scenarios, you're kind of pulling back the curtain on your business with them a little bit. You are probably letting them see your marketing plans. Maybe they have access to some non-public information. So you may want to have some confidentiality terms with them. You may not want them to then go work for a competitor. So you may want to think about how you deal with that. That gets tricky. That definitely requires talking with a lawyer. Anytime you're wanting to involve a non-compete, that's different in every state. So you do not want to mess around with that. You want to definitely research that, make sure you're doing it the right way. But however you set this up, I do recommend that you get a signed contract with these, anybody who is kind of has a role in your community, unless it really is just like you give them some special privileges and they can just show up and do whatever they want. There's no real responsibility. Maybe it can be a little looser. But what I see is there's kind of an expectation that you'll be around for a couple hours a week, or you'll answer questions or things like that. All right, I have 3 more quick hits before I wrap up. The next thing that I see a lot of my community membership type clients doing as they grow is they may have affiliate relationships. And so what that means is someone else promotes your membership or your community, or you promote their thing. So it may go either way. And with an affiliate relationship, I'm not going to go into all the details. We have several podcast episodes about that if you want to learn more. But if that is a model that you're using to get the word out about your membership or your community, highly recommend having a written agreement so that everybody's on the same page. Anytime there's money changing hands, we want to make sure that everybody understands what they're getting into, how they can use any intellectual property you provide, whether it's your logo, if you're providing launch copy or anything else. We just want all of that to be very clear and clean. So an affiliate agreement is absolutely essential. Everything that I've talked about up to this point is really a contract, and we have templates for all of these in our online store. So I said I would mention that. awbfirm.com. We do have a bundle if you are a membership or online community that's going to have pretty much everything you need. I didn't talk about your website, but you also need terms and conditions and a privacy policy. You can listen to other episodes about that. It's required. We have all of that in our template shop. So the last 2 things I want to talk about are intellectual property protections, copyright and trademark. So copyright is protecting your content. Trademark is protecting your brand, your company name, course name, program name, any of that stuff. So for a membership, I recommend that my clients register their copyrights in whatever content is in the membership. So maybe it is a course, maybe it's just a bunch of guides, maybe it's a resource library. If you are selling it kind of as one access point for one price, you can register all of that stuff in one bundle with the Copyright Office. It is not super expensive, $65 filing fee. We like to file them for our clients just because there are some tricky parts of the application, but I would rather you register than not. There are a lot of benefits. You can't file a lawsuit until you're registered. So if you do find that someone has copied your stuff, it's very hard to get them to stop if you don't have a copyright registration. So think about that. You do have to send a copy of all the content to the Copyright Office. So if you're constantly changing things and mixing it up, making edits all the time, you'll want to kind of choose a date where it's locked in time. And anything you add after that will not be protected. But what I find is most of the core content kind of stays the same. And maybe you're adding things later that you could register later. But a copyright registration for your content is key. And then the last thing is to protect your brand. So maybe you have a really catchy name for your brand. Maybe it's the name of the community, or maybe it is the name of your business. Maybe you have kind of an umbrella brand and everything falls under that. Definitely consider a trademark registration. If you are early on, I don't think this is the first thing you should tackle. That's why it's at the end of the episode. But I do recommend that you at least run your own trademark search to check and see, are there other businesses, especially if they're in the like online education, membership, community space, running a similar business or a similar offering with a similar name. You want to stay away from those. You want to make sure that you have clear rights to your name. You want to be the first one to use it, because if someone else is already using it, even if they haven't registered it, they could claim priority rights. That means they could sue you, they could make you stop using it. So once your membership is off the ground, you feel like it's steady, you're going to stay with the name for a while, I do recommend registering the name with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. It gives you stronger rights. You still have priority, you still have common law rights even if you don't register, but it's a great idea to register your name to make sure that if someone is trying to join your membership, if they're trying to find you, they're not going to land on your competitor's page. We don't like copycats, and if you have a trademark registration, it makes it much, much easier to just shut that stuff down very quickly. All right. I try to keep these episodes not super long. I know I kind of went long today, so I appreciate you guys being patient with me. As you can tell, we really enjoy working with these kind of businesses. So if you have a membership, if you're thinking about starting a membership, definitely reach out. Let us know if we can be helpful. You'll find tons more resources on our website. And I will be back next week with my interview with Brett Siva. So definitely tune into that, and I will see you guys again soon. Have a good one.